In 1324, a man walked into Cairo, not as a refugee, not as a prisoner. He arrived with 60,000 people, 12,000 servants, dressed in Persian silk and Moroccan brocade, 80 camels, each one carrying over 300 pounds of pure gold. The streets of Cairo had never seen anything like it. The Sultan of Egypt, one of the most powerful men alive, came out to receive him. His name was Mansa Musa, and the gold he scattered through Egypt that day crashed the entire economy for 12 years. But that is not the story we are here to tell. Because while the world was staring at Mansa Musa's gold, a historian pulled him aside and asked a simple question: how did you become king? And what Musa said next is one of the most extraordinary answers in the history of exploration. To understand this story, you have to understand what the Mali Empire was. Forget everything Europe was doing in the 1300s, while England was stumbling through the Black Death, while European kings were begging merchants for loans, while the rest of the world scraped and starved for gold. One empire in West Africa had so much of it that they used it as dust. The Mali Empire. At its peak, it stretched across 1.29 million square kilometers of West Africa, larger than Western Europe. It controlled the headwaters of two great rivers, the Senegal and the Niger. It sat at the crossroads of every major trade route on the continent. The crown kept every gold nugget found in imperial territory for itself. Only gold dust was left for common trade. And in the city of Timbuktu, the second most valuable commodity after salt was books. Let that sit with you for a moment. While Europe was burning books, Timbuktu had a university with 25,000 students. Scholars came from across the Islamic world to study there: astronomy, law, medicine, theology, mathematics. This was the world Abu Bakr II inherited. A throne of gold, a kingdom of scholars, an empire the rest of the world envied, and he walked away from all of it. His name, as history has come to remember him, was Mansa Abu Bakr II. Mansa, the title given to the supreme ruler of Mali. And Abu Bakr was not just a ruler, he was an obsessive. Not obsessed with war, not obsessed with wealth. He already had more than he could spend. He was obsessed with a question: to the west of Mali, past the forests, past the rivers, past every known trade route and every known map, the Atlantic Ocean began. And no one knew where it ended. In Europe, sailors feared it. They called it the Sea of Darkness, a place where the water boiled, where sea monsters waited, where ships fell off the edge of the world. But Abu Bakr looked at it differently. He reasoned the way a scientist reasons, that if the Niger River begins somewhere and ends somewhere, then the ocean must also begin somewhere and end somewhere. And if it ends somewhere, what is on the other side? He had to know. So in the years before 1312, Abu Bakr did something no ruler had ever done. He summoned the greatest shipbuilders in West Africa, engineers from the shores of Lake Chad, men who understood deep water, who had studied the ships of the Senegal and Joliba rivers, who knew how to build vessels that could survive what no one had survived before. He equipped 200 ships, 100 for sailors and soldiers, 100 filled with gold, provisions, water, and supplies, enough to last for years. His order to the captain was simple: do not return until you reach the end of the Atlantic or until your food and water run out. The fleet departed. Days passed. Weeks passed. Months. Then, one ship returned. Just one. The captain stood before Abu Bakr and described what he had seen: a powerful current in the open ocean, not a storm, not a wave, but a river inside the sea. A current so strong it pulled the ships forward and would not let them turn back. One by one, the ships disappeared into it, dragged into the unknown. Most kings would have stopped there, but Abu Bakr II was not most kings. Here is where this story separates itself from every other story in history. When the captain finished his account, Abu Bakr did not order a memorial for the lost men. He did not declare the ocean unconquerable. He did not move on. He looked at the ocean, at the same abyss that had swallowed 200 ships, and he said, "This time I will go myself." And then he did something no emperor had ever done in the history of West Africa. He abdicated his throne. He called for his deputy, a man named Kanku Musa, who history would later know as Mansa Musa, and he placed the crown in his hands. Then he prepared the greatest fleet the medieval world had ever seen. Not 200 ships, 2,000. 1,000 ships carrying men, sailors, warriors, scholars, engineers, traders, artists, doctors. 1,000 ships carrying supplies, food, medicine, crops, animals, gold. For context, Columbus, 180 years later, sailed with 3 ships and 90 men. Abu Bakr sailed with 2,000 ships. In 1311 or 1312, historians debate the exact year. The greatest naval expedition in medieval African history departed the shores of West Africa, and Mansa Abu Bakr II was never seen again. Now, here is how we know any of this. 13 years later, Cairo, 1324. Mansa Musa, the man who inherited Abu Bakr's throne, is sitting with an Egyptian official named Ibn Amir Hajib. They are talking about Mali, about power, about kings. And Ibn Amir Hajib asks him, "How did you come to rule?" Musa pauses, and then he tells this story. Not proudly, not triumphantly, almost as an explanation, an apology, a footnote. Ibn Amir Hajib recorded every word. He passed the account to the scholar Al-Umari. Al-Umari wrote it down in 1342, and that document, a second-hand conversation, recorded in Cairo, about a king who vanished into the Atlantic, is the only written record we have. Everything else is silence. But here is where science enters the story. The captain's account of a river in the sea is not a myth. It is not an exaggeration. It is the Canary Current, a powerful, westward-flowing current that runs along the coast of West Africa. At almost exactly the same latitude as Mali, it flows west, straight west, across the Atlantic, directly toward the Americas. A ship caught in that current, without an engine, without modern navigation, would not drift aimlessly. It would be carried. In 1970, explorer Thor Heyerdahl proved this. He crossed the Atlantic in a boat made of reeds, the same materials West African shipbuilders used, riding exactly these currents. So we must ask the question no one can ignore. If 2,000 ships left the coast of West Africa in 1311, riding a current that flows directly to the Americas, where did they go? Some historians say nowhere. They say the ships sank. The current overwhelmed them. It was tragedy, not discovery. But others point to evidence. Fragmented, disputed, deeply contested evidence, but evidence nonetheless. When Columbus arrived in the Caribbean in 1492, he recorded something strange. Native peoples on Hispaniola told him that black-skinned men had come to them from the south, men with gold-tipped spears. Columbus's son confirmed it. The spearheads were tested. The gold alloy, called guanine by the natives, came back matching the precise composition of West African gold. Columbus also noted that some native tribes wore cloth resembling the fabric of Muslim West Africa, that they used handkerchiefs in the same style, that he saw a ship leaving the Guinean coast, heading west. Then there are the maps, place names in the Caribbean and Central America, that echo Mandinka, the language of the Mali Empire. Mandinga Port, Mandinga Bay, Sierra de Mali. Is this proof? No. Historians are clear on that. There is no confirmed artifact, no monument, no document from the Malian side recording a successful crossing, no genetic evidence that has conclusively held up. But the clues refuse to disappear, and that is what makes this story so powerful. It lives in the space between proof and possibility. Here is what we know for certain. A ruler of one of the most powerful empires on Earth A man who had more wealth than most nations gave up everything. Not for conquest. Abu Bakr was not expanding borders. He already had enough land. Not for trade. Mali already dominated trade. Not for glory. If he found something, he never came back to claim it. He went because he wanted to know. The Malian historian Gausu Diawara said this about him, that he should be looked up to by modern politicians as an example. A ruler who valued science and discovery over holding on to power. Think about that comparison for a moment. Christopher Columbus sailed with royal funding, royal ambitions, and the promise of wealth and title upon his return. Abu Bakr sailed with no such promise. He had already given the title away. He had already given the wealth away. He sailed with nothing to gain, only something to discover. And now, we return to the question. Did an African king discover America before Columbus? Here is the honest answer. We do not know. The currents could have carried him there. The clues suggest something crossed before Columbus. The Malian Empire had the ships, the men, the resources, and the will. But history does not always record what happened. Sometimes it only records who was remembered. Columbus is celebrated because Europe wrote the history books. Abu Bakr vanished because no one came back to write his 2,000 ships. One man's obsession. And a question that history still cannot answer. Somewhere out there, perhaps under the soil of Brazil, the Caribbean, or the Gulf of Mexico, the answer might still exist. Waiting. The way all great discoveries wait. If this story makes you feel that Africa's history has been told too small, you are right. Subscribe, because the next story we tell might be even harder to believe. And tell me in the comments, do you think he made it? Or was this the greatest lost expedition in the history of the world? Because the debate is very much still alive.